I was never meant to be at that wedding. In fact, if life had followed any sort of logical path, I wouldn't have found myself anywhere near that situation. Yet somehow, only 3 days after my landlord casually reminded me that rent was due, I was standing in front of a mirror wearing an expensive suit that didn't belong to me, practicing a smile and preparing to pretend that I was in a relationship with someone I barely knew. That someone was Leo. Looking back, every part of the arrangement sounded ridiculous. A terrible idea wrapped inside an even worse one. But at the time, it didn't feel reckless. It felt unexpected, interesting, maybe even exciting. The whole thing began on an ordinary Tuesday evening. I had just returned from work, exhausted in a way that settled deep into your bones. My shift had drained every ounce of energy from me, and all I wanted was a quiet night. While climbing the stairs to my apartment, I was mentally calculating bills, groceries, and how many packets of instant noodles I could stretch across the rest of the week. Rent had increased again. The frustrating part was that my apartment wasn't worth the price. Calling it an apartment was being generous. It was more like a storage room that someone had decorated and decided to charge monthly payments for. I was standing in my tiny kitchen reheating leftovers when a knock sounded at my door. At first, I didn't think much of it. My landlord had a habit of appearing without warning. Sometimes it was about maintenance. Sometimes it was about paperwork. Most of the time, it was simply to remind tenants about something that could have easily been sent in a text message. Expecting to see him, I opened the door. Instead, I found Leo standing there. I recognized him immediately. Living in the building for over a year made it impossible not to notice him whenever he visited his father. He had the kind of appearance that naturally attracted attention without seeming to try. Tall, dark hair that always looked slightly messy. A relaxed confidence that made every room feel smaller when he walked into it. We had spoken before, but only briefly. A greeting in the hallway. A quick exchange while checking the mail. Nothing memorable. At least, nothing memorable until that evening. "Hey," he said casually, leaning against the doorframe as though visiting strangers was part of his daily routine. His voice was smooth and relaxed. "You're Cooper, right?" I blinked. The fact that he knew my name caught me off guard. "Yeah," I answered. "And you're Leo." A small smile appeared on his face. "Good," he said. "That saves us from an awkward introduction." I frowned. "Okay." His eyes briefly moved down the hallway before returning to me. "Can I come in for a minute?" he asked. "I promise I won't keep you long." Looking back, that should have been my warning sign. People never start strange conversations with that sentence unless something unusual is coming next. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I stepped aside. "Sure." Leo walked inside. He glanced around my apartment, taking in the cramped space, the worn furniture, and a stack of unopened mail sitting on the table. His expression wasn't judgmental. If anything, he seemed thoughtful. Then he turned toward me. For a moment, he looked unusually nervous. Not enough for most people to notice, but enough for me. "So," he began. The single word already sounded suspicious. This is going to sound weird. I crossed my arms. That's never a comforting way to start a conversation. A laugh escaped him. "Faye." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Just hear me out first." I nodded cautiously. Leo inhaled deeply before speaking. "I need a date for a wedding." I stared at him. "Okay. And I want you to come with me." Silence filled the room. I waited for him to smile, to laugh, to reveal it was some kind of joke. None of that happened. His expression remained completely serious. "You're kidding." "I'm not." Another silence, longer this time. I actually glanced behind me, half expecting someone else to be standing there. There wasn't. "You want me," I said slowly, "to go to a wedding with you?" "Yes." "We barely know each other." "I know. And somehow that's supposed to make sense." Leo sighed. "Not yet. Let me explain." I motioned for him to continue. He stepped a little closer. "My ex is going to be there." Finally, an explanation. I raised an eyebrow. "Okay." He thinks I'm still obsessed with him. "And you're not." "No." The answer came instantly. Almost too instantly. "But if I show up alone, Leo continued. He's going to assume he's right. I folded my arms tighter. So your solution is to bring a random tenant from your father's building. A reluctant grin appeared on his face. When you put it that way, it sounds terrible. Because it is terrible. His laughter returned, but there was tension behind it. The confidence he usually carried seemed slightly cracked. And then he said something unexpected. I didn't choose you randomly. That made me pause. The room suddenly felt quieter. What does that mean? His eyes met mine. Direct, steady, honest. I've noticed you. For some reason, those 3 words landed harder than they should have. He continued before I could respond. You seem genuine. Most people try too hard. They perform. They exaggerate. You don't. I didn't know what to say. No one had ever described me that way before. Why me? I asked quietly. Leo hesitated. For the first time since entering my apartment, he looked uncertain. Then he answered, because I think you'd be good at pretending. The word struck something inside me. Something uncomfortable. Something true. I looked away briefly, trying not to think about all the times I pretended everything was fine when it wasn't. All the times I'd smiled through stress, through loneliness, through disappointment. Maybe he wasn't entirely wrong. What exactly would I have to do? I asked. Leo shrugged. Show up with me. Act like we're dating. Spend a few hours together. That's it. That's it. I narrowed my eyes. You're making it sound way too easy. He laughed. Maybe because it is. No wedding is that simple. Probably not. I pointed at him. People ask questions. I'll handle them. They gossip. I'll handle that too. They judge. His smile widened. I definitely know how to handle that. I shook my head. The entire situation sounded absurd. Ridiculous. The smart answer was obvious. No. A simple, immediate no. But strangely, I couldn't say it. Part of me wanted to know what would happen. Part of me wanted to understand why he had chosen me. And another part, one I didn't want to acknowledge, simply wanted another excuse to spend time around him. What happens afterward? I asked. His expression softened. Afterward, everything goes back to normal. No expectations. No commitments. No complications. Just one wedding. One performance. One temporary lie. I should have refused. Instead, I heard myself ask a question that sealed my fate. When is it? Relief flashed across Leo's face so quickly he couldn't hide it. Saturday. Of course it was. Only a few days away. Enough time to regret my decision. Not enough time to escape it. Leo took another step closer. So, a hopeful smile appeared. Is that a yes? I looked at him carefully. Really looked at him. Beneath the confidence, there was nervousness. Beneath the charm, there was vulnerability. For some reason, seeing that side of him made the decision easier. I exhaled slowly. Fine. His eyes widened. Seriously. Yes. I pointed at him again. But if this becomes a disaster, I'm blaming you for every second of it. His laugh filled the apartment. Warm, genuine, the kind of laugh that made people want to smile with him. Deal. Then he extended his hand toward me. A simple gesture, almost professional, as though we were signing a contract. I stared at it briefly before reaching out. The moment our hands met, I noticed the warmth of his grip. Firm, steady, and lingering just a little longer than necessary. Thank you, Cooper, he said softly. Something in his voice felt different, more sincere than before. And as he stood there smiling at me, I realized this wasn't just a random favor anymore. It wasn't simply about a wedding. It wasn't about an ex. It wasn't even about pretending. Somewhere between opening that door and shaking his hand, the story had already begun. Neither of us knew where it would lead. But for the first time, I wanted to find out. If I'm being honest, the entire situation should have worried me far more than it did. Looking back now, there were dozens of questions I should have asked before agreeing. Questions any sensible person would have asked. What kind of relationship had he actually had with this ex? How convincing did this fake relationship need to be? Why was he so determined to bring me specifically? And perhaps most importantly, why did it seem like this mattered to him so much? Instead of asking any of those things, I simply agreed. Just like that, I found myself with only a few days to prepare for the role of someone's boyfriend. A pretend boyfriend. At least, that was what we were calling it. The following evening, another knock echoed through my apartment. This time I knew exactly who it would be. When I opened the door, Leo stood there with a confident grin, balancing a large garment bag over one shoulder while carrying 2 coffee cups in his other hand. Offering a peace treaty, he announced, lifting the drink slightly. I glanced at them, already trying to buy my loyalty. Absolutely. His smile widened. I need you fully committed to this mission. I stepped aside. You make it sound like I'm currently working against you. Not yet. He walked inside, but there's still time. The apartment suddenly felt smaller with him in it. He always carried this strange energy that filled every room he entered without him even trying. Leo placed the coffees on the counter before holding up the garment bag. Got something for you. I groaned immediately. I don't like that sentence. Relax. His grin turned playful. It's just a suit. Just a suit, I repeated skeptically. You can't show up looking like you've been surviving on caffeine and poor life choices. I have been surviving on caffeine and poor life choices. Exactly. He pointed at me, which is why I intervened. I accepted the garment bag and nearly dropped it from surprise. The material felt expensive, very expensive, the kind of expensive that made me nervous to even touch it. Carefully unzipping the cover, I caught sight of a dark tailored suit. Even at first glance, I could tell it was worth more than my entire wardrobe combined. I immediately looked up. Leo. What? This is way too much. He shrugged. No, it isn't. It absolutely is. He took a step closer. Then think of it as part of the arrangement. I narrowed my eyes. What arrangement? The one where you saved me from an incredibly awkward wedding. His voice softened. And I make sure you're taken care of. Something about the way he said it made my pulse stumble slightly. The words sounded innocent enough, yet somehow they felt loaded. That's suspiciously vague. No, his smile returned. It's suspiciously generous. I shook my head. You're impossible. And yet you still agreed. Unfortunately, he had a point. The rest of the evening became an unexpected planning session. We sat across from each other at my tiny kitchen table, coffee cups between us, constructing an entire relationship out of thin air. Apparently fake dating required more preparation than I had imagined. How long had we been together? I asked. 3 months. The answer came instantly. I blinked. You answered that way too fast. He looked entirely unapologetic. I've been thinking about this. That's concerning. It means I'm prepared. I'm not sure that better. He laughed. I hated how much I like hearing it. Fine, I said. Where did we meet? A coffee shop. I stared at him. That's your big romantic backstory. It works. It's boring. It's believable. I couldn't argue with that. Okay, what else? Leo leaned back in his chair. What do you mean? What do we actually do together? His expression softened slightly. We spend time together. Very specific. We talk. Still vague. We enjoy each other's company. That answer lingered in the air longer than either of us expected. I looked at him carefully. You keep mentioning that. Mentioning what? The idea that this needs to feel real. His eyes held mine. Because it does. I folded my arms. Why? For a moment he seemed unsure how much to reveal. Then he sighed. If it feels fake, he'll know. The way he said he told me everything. This wasn't simply an ex-boyfriend. This was someone whose opinion still carried weight. Maybe more weight than Leo wanted to admit. I nodded slowly. So we act natural. Exactly. And what does natural look like? A thoughtful smile appeared on his face. I guess we're about to find out. That was when things became complicated. Not complicated in a bad way. Complicated because suddenly we were practicing. At first it was harmless. learning small details, shared stories, favorite foods, fake memories, tiny habits. Then somehow we moved on to body language, which was significantly more dangerous. According to Leo, couples communicated constantly without speaking. The distance they stood apart, the way they looked at each other, the unconscious touches, the small gestures. Apparently people noticed all of it. "Stand here," he instructed. I immediately frowned. That sounds like the beginning of a crime documentary. He rolled his eyes. "Just trust me." Dangerous words. Still, I stayed where I was. Before I could prepare myself, he stepped directly in front of me. Then his hand settled lightly against my waist. Every coherent thought vanished. Gone. Completely gone. The move itself wasn't dramatic. It was casual, simple, normal. At least normal for people who were supposedly dating. For me, it felt like someone had suddenly increased the temperature in the room. "There." His voice was calm. "See." I swallowed. "No." A laugh escaped him. "No." "No." I shook my head. "This feels incredibly weird." His smile softened. "Only because you're thinking about it." Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one trying to remember how breathing worked. His hands remained exactly where they were. Not gripping, not pulling, just resting there. Warm, comfortable, dangerously comfortable. "This," he said quietly, "looks natural." I stared at him. Natural. Right. That word had completely lost meaning. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Neither of us looked away. The apartment seemed unusually quiet. The air between us suddenly felt much smaller. Then his expression shifted slightly. "Too much?" he asked. The answer should have been yes. Without hesitation. Without debate. Instead, I heard myself say, "No." Something flickered across his face. A reaction so brief I almost missed it. Then he slowly stepped back. The distance returned. The moment disappeared. At least physically. Mentally, it stayed for the rest of the night. By the time we finished planning, we had created an entire believable relationship. 3 months together. Coffee shop meeting. Private personalities. Slow relationship. Low drama. Minimal social media. The whole thing sounded surprisingly convincing. "Why are we taking things slow?" I asked eventually. Leo smiled. "Because nobody has met you yet." "Faye." "And because—" He hesitated. I noticed immediately. "Because what?" His gaze shifted briefly. "It gives us room to figure things out." I frowned. "You mean improvise?" "Yeah." His answer came too quickly, like he wanted the conversation to move on. Something told me he wasn't only talking about the wedding. When he finally prepared to leave, the apartment felt strangely different. Not uncomfortable, just changed, as if something had quietly shifted beneath the surface while neither of us had been paying attention. At the doorway, he paused. "Saturday." I nodded. "Saturday." For a second it looked like he wanted to say more. Instead, he smiled. "Wear the suit." "That's the plan." I need my fake boyfriend looking impressive. I rolled my eyes. No pressure. None whatsoever. His grin returned. Then he disappeared down the hallway. After closing the door, I leaned against it and exhaled slowly. This entire thing was ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. And yet, out of everything that had happened that evening, the memory I couldn't stop replaying wasn't the wedding. It wasn't the fake relationship. It wasn't even the conversation. It was a feeling of his hands resting on my waist, which was definitely becoming a problem. The morning of the wedding arrived much faster than I wanted. Several times I considered canceling. Not dramatically. No emotional breakdown. No panic text message. Just quiet hesitation. The kind that appears when reality finally catches up. Standing in front of the mirror, fully dressed, I realized this wasn't some funny story anymore. It was actually happening. The suit fit perfectly. Of course it did. Every sleeve, every seam, every detail. It looked as though it had been tailored specifically for me, which somehow made me think about Leo again. About how he'd known my size. About how carefully he'd paid attention. About how that shouldn't matter as much as it did. I adjusted my collar, then adjusted it again. Then a third time. You're overthinking this. The irony of saying that out loud wasn't lost on me. A fake relationship, a wedding, an ex-boyfriend. Absolutely nothing stressful there. Right on schedule, a knock sounded. My stomach immediately tightened. I grabbed my jacket and opened the door, then forgot what I was about to say. Leo looked unfairly good. There was no other way to describe it. The suit fit him perfectly. His hair was actually styled. The usual effortless mess had been replaced by something cleaner, sharper, more intentional. Yet somehow he still looked completely natural. Damn! His eyes moved over me. You look incredible. I immediately looked away. It's a suit. No. His smile deepened. I'm pretty sure it's you. That answer hit harder than it should have. I grabbed my keys simply to give my hand something to do. So, I cleared my throat. We're really doing this. His expression softened. We're really doing this. The drive felt surprisingly comfortable. Music played quietly. Conversation came naturally when it happened. Neither of us forced anything. And somehow that made everything worse. Because every time I started relaxing, I'd remember why we were going. His ex. The entire reason this existed. At one point I glanced over. Leo's eyes stayed fixed on the road. His jaw looked slightly tense. Hey! He glanced toward me briefly. Yeah. You okay? Fine. The answer came quickly. Too quickly. I stuttered him. You know you don't actually have to prove anything. His hands tightened around the steering wheel. Only slightly, but enough. I know. His voice was quiet. Then he added, I just want to. After that, neither of us spoke for several minutes. The wedding venue looked exactly like the kind of place rich people loved. Elegant, expensive, intimidating. The sort of location where everyone appeared successful. I immediately felt out of place. Relax. Leo's voice broke through my thoughts. You look terrified. I feel terrified. He laughed softly. It's a wedding, not an interrogation. Easy for him to say. As we approached the entrance, he suddenly stopped walking. I turned toward him. What? For a moment he simply looked at me. Then his expression softened. From this point forward, he said quietly, We're on. Before I could answer, his fingers slipped between mine. His hand closed around mine naturally, comfortably, as if he'd been doing it for years. And just like that, the pretending officially began. The moment his hand slipped into mine, something shifted. Not dramatically, not in a way anyone around us could have noticed. But inside me, everything felt different. When we'd practiced before, it had felt controlled, planned. Every touch had a purpose. Every movement had been part of the act. This wasn't like that. This felt effortless, natural. His fingers intertwined with mine as though they had done it countless times before. As though this wasn't something new or unfamiliar. As though there was already a place for my hand in his. And the part that bothered me most wasn't that he did it. It was how naturally I accepted it. My body didn't tense. I didn't pull away. I didn't even hesitate. Instead, it felt strangely right. Doing okay? Leo asked quietly beside me. His voice was low enough that only I could hear it. I swallowed. Yeah. The answer came out smoothly. Far smoother than I felt. Because internally, I was a complete mess. Not panicked. Not overwhelmed. Just confused. The venue buzzed with life around us. Elegant conversations floated through the air. Laughter echoed across the reception hall. Guests drifted from group to group, exchanging stories and compliments while waiters carried trays of champagne through the crowd. Everyone seemed perfectly comfortable. Everyone except me. Yet somehow, standing beside Leo made the situation easier. His hand remained in mine as we moved through the room. He never let go. Not once. In fact, every time someone approached us, his grip seemed to tighten slightly. Not possessive, not forced, just reassuring, as though he was reminding both of us to stay in character. Or maybe reminding himself. A voice suddenly cut through the crowd. Leo. We both turned. A man about our age was making his way toward us with an easy smile. Didn't think you'd actually come. Leo grinned. Wouldn't have missed it. The guy laughed before his attention shifted toward me. Immediately, curiosity appeared in his eyes. And who's this? There it was. The first challenge. The first moment where our carefully rehearsed story would actually matter. I felt Leo's thumb brush gently across the back of my hand. A tiny movement. A silent reminder. Relax. I'd like you to meet Cooper, Leo said smoothly. Then he added the part that made my heart stumble. My boyfriend. Boyfriend. The word shouldn't have affected me. It was part of the act. Nothing more. A role. A title. A convenient lie. Yet hearing him say it aloud felt unexpectedly real. Nice to meet you, the guy said. You too. I managed a smile. His gaze moved between us. Clearly assessing. Clearly curious. So how long have you two been together? 3 months. Coffee shop. Simple answers. We'd rehearse this. About 3 months, I replied confidently. Leo glanced toward me. Only for a second, but I caught the subtle approval in his eyes. The guy laughed. 3 months, and you're already bringing him to weddings. Leo shrugged. His worth bringing. I nearly lost my composure. Barely. Thankfully, years of surviving awkward social situations saved me. I forced myself to stay calm, to stay believable, to stay in character. The ceremony itself passed in a blur. People spoke. Vows were exchanged. Guests applauded. Photos were taken. I barely registered any of it, because Leo's hand remained on my knee for most of the ceremony. A small touch, easy to ignore, impossible to actually ignore. Every subtle movement of his fingers completely destroyed my concentration. By the time the reception started, things only became more complicated. Music filled the room. Guests crowded the dance floor. Conversations grew louder, and opportunities to be close multiplied. You dance? Leo asked. I looked at him, not voluntarily. His grin appeared instantly. Good. I raised an eyebrow. Why is that good? Because neither do I. Comforting. Right. 5 minutes later, we were dancing. Naturally, the universe clearly enjoyed making fun of me. His hand settled against my waist. The exact same position with practice. Yet it felt entirely different now. Maybe because people were watching. Maybe because the atmosphere was different. Or maybe because I was starting to forget where the performance ended. You're tense. His voice was barely audible above the music. I'm aware. Relax. Helpful advice. I'm serious. He stepped slightly closer. Close enough that I could feel his warmth. Close enough that his voice seemed to vibrate directly through me. Just follow my lead. That probably should have sounded less dangerous than it did. But despite every warning my brain attempted to provide, I listened. Slowly, my shoulders relaxed. The awkwardness faded. The nervousness softened. And somehow dancing became easier. Leo guided every movement effortlessly. One hand steady against my side, the other holding mine. Patient, confident, certain, as though he knew exactly what he was doing. As though he'd done this 1,000 times before. As though he had. See, he murmured, you're doing fine. I scoffed. Your standards must be incredibly low. A laugh escaped him. Warm, soft, genuine. The sound hit harder than it should have. For one brief moment, everything else disappeared. The crowd, the music, the wedding, the reason we were even there. None of it mattered. There was only him. And then reality returned. Fast, sharp, unavoidable. Leo. The voice cut through the moment instantly. I felt the change before I even saw the source. Leo went completely still, only for a fraction of a second. But I felt it. The tension, the hesitation, the sudden shift. Slowly, we turned, and there he was. Adrian. I didn't need an introduction. The look on Leo's face told me everything. This was the reason we'd come. This was the person whose shadow still lingered despite everything. Adrian stood confidently in front of us. Tall, well-dressed, polished in a way that felt deliberate. Every detail carefully chosen. His eyes moved from Leo to me, then back again, taking everything in. The closeness, the body language, the way we still stood together. The way Leo's hand remained at my waist. So it's true. His voice was calm, yet somehow sharp enough to cut through every surrounding sound. Leo didn't move. Yeah. The answer came easily. Too easily. It is. Adrian stuttered him. Then me. Then both of us together. I didn't think you'd actually do it. Leo's expression remained unreadable. Do what? This. Adrian gestured between us. The meaning obvious. Move on. The air immediately grew heavier. This wasn't casual curiosity. This wasn't friendly conversation. This was something much deeper. Something unfinished. Leo exhaled slowly. It's been months, Adrian. A faint smile appeared on Adrian's face, though there wasn't much humor in it. Funny how quickly things change. His gaze landed on me again, this time longer, more focused, almost analytical. You're Cooper. Not a question, a statement. Yeah. He nodded thoughtfully. And how exactly did you meet? There it was. The real test. Not curiosity. Verification. He was checking our story. Searching for cracks. Searching for hesitation. Searching for proof. I felt Leo's thumb brush lightly against my side. A small gesture. A grounding one. We met at a coffee shop. Can I come in for a minute? He asked. I promise I won't keep you long. Looking back, that should have been my warning sign. People never start strange conversations with that sentence unless something unusual is coming next. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I stepped aside. Sure. Leo walked inside. He glanced around my apartment, taking in the cramped space, the worn furniture, and the stack of unopened mail sitting on the table. His expression wasn't judgmental. If anything, he seemed thoughtful. Then he turned toward me. For a moment, he looked unusually nervous. Not enough for most people to notice, but enough for me. So, he began. The single word already sounded suspicious. This is going to sound weird. I crossed my arms. That's never a comforting way to start a conversation. A laugh escaped him. Faye! He rubbed the back of his neck. Just hear me out first. I nodded cautiously. Leo inhaled deeply before speaking. I need a date for a wedding. I stared at him. Okay. And I want you to come with me. Silence filled the room. I waited for him to smile, to laugh, to reveal it was some kind of joke. None of that happened. His expression remained completely serious. You're kidding. I'm not. Another silence, longer this time. I actually glanced behind me, half expecting someone else to be standing there. There wasn't. You want me, I said slowly, to go to a wedding with you? Yes. We barely know each other. I know. And somehow that's supposed to make sense. Leo sighed. Not yet. Let me explain. I motioned for him to continue. He stepped a little closer. My ex is going to be there. Finally, an explanation. I raised an eyebrow. Okay. He thinks I'm still obsessed with him. And you're not. No. The answer came instantly. Almost too instantly. But if I show up alone, Leo continued, he's going to assume he's right. I folded my arms tighter. So your solution is to bring a random tenant from your father's building. A reluctant grin appeared on his face. When you put it that way, it sounds terrible. Because it is terrible. His laughter returned, but there was tension behind it. The confidence he usually carried seemed slightly cracked. And then he said something unexpected. I didn't choose you randomly. That made me pause. The room suddenly felt quieter. What does that mean? His eyes met mine. Direct, steady, honest. I've noticed you.